Hello again, everyone. I'm Larry Hamilton. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Thank you for watching today. I'm glad to be back to doing oil paintings today. I'm standing on my both feet today. If you've been following my medical problems for the last 3 months, you know I had a broken left leg, and so I haven't been able to stand up here at my easel and paint my oil paintings. I have tried to do some watercolors, but this is my first day back for oil painting after about 3 months off. So I'm kind of excited to do this. We're trying something a little new today that I haven't done quite this type of painting before. It's going to be an oil painting, of course, on 11 by 14 canvas with my gray gesso and my white sketch on top of it. But the photo, I didn't have a good photo to start from, so I want to talk you through that and explain to you how we got to this composition, and that's what's a little bit different today. So anyway, welcome, and I'm glad you're here, and we'll try to have a good painting day today and my first day back with oil. So come on over to the computer with me and I'll talk you through what I did to get the composition. Okay, so here I am at my computer now, and I want to take you through a little bit of what I got. The photograph that you've been able to see that was on the screen when you were watching the startup here is really a composite photo of 3 different photos that I received from my Photos for Artists Facebook page, and 3 different photographers provided these photos. One is Cindy Cook, another is Alice Berghardt, and the third one is Wendy Forbes. So each of them had something I liked, and so I tried to kind of break that apart and put that together in one composition. So the sketch you'll see doesn't look like any one of these photos, but I do want to show you what I did. I took some of the things for the foreground here from the one on the left, the photo on the left, and that was from Cindy Cook. And I like the snow scene. I like the way the light hit the aspen trees, and I like the shadows on the ground. This particular photo shows the shadows sort of coming from behind the photographer, so the shadows kind of go back and away at an interesting angle. I kind of like that idea. Then this photo that was provided by Alice Berghardt had some up close photos of aspens. Nice big round trunks, a lot of them, way too many to put in a painting, of course. And there's very little depth in this photograph, so I didn't like that part about it, so I was looking for something that had a little bit of depth. So that's when I came upon this third photo provided by Wendy Forbes. She had little aspens in the foreground and almost no middle ground. It had a mountain behind it. So I took those 3 and thinking about that, thinking about what I wanted to do, I had a very simplified sketch in my sketchbook, just black and white ink here, and you'll notice that I have the sun kind of showing from the lower right corner, which is going to give maybe some interesting shadows, which will be a little different than what we've done before. And you notice I've taken out quite a few of the trees. I may have more trees in my final sketch. I do have more trees actually than this particular simple drawing shows, but so I don't have that's as close as I have to a value map of this because I didn't have a photograph to work from. But I did take my final sketch and I put a grid over it, and so it's laid out in my 4x5 grid, which you know about, and know that fits the 11 by 14 canvas very well. And so that's the grid. And finally, I have my sketch, which you've probably been able to look at while you've been watching here for me to start up. And it is simplified, but I do have some of those angular marks on the lower front that kind of show these shadows that I want to try to capture if I can. So I think that's as much as I want to tell you about the painting or about the composition and about how I arrived at it with these 3 photos. Some artists call this a Frankenstein composition, when you take results of 3 different photographs or 2 different photographs and put them together in one final composition. It's sort of like pieces of each one all making a whole. So hopefully that's going to be an interesting exercise for us. You can get the sketch out on my website. The link is already in the at the bottom of your what you're looking at here. And I will have everything on my website when after a few days after I finish this. So let's go back over to the easel now and let's get started. I'll take you through the paints and I'll take you through the brushes. And you've seen these before. These are my Bob Ross oil paints, and a few of my Bob Ross oil brushes. I have a 1-inch blender here. I have a script liner. I have this fan brush, which is really good for some snow scenes. It gives some very nice blended effects. I have my big painting knife here, a Bob Ross painting knife that I've had for years. And I may not use all these, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to use that this fan brush. Have another knife here that I can use for certain kinds of marks if I want to use that. Then I have my set of Trekell brushes here that are filberts and flats. I have a range of sizes from 16 down to 8. I even have a few smaller filberts than this if I need those. And then I have some flats. I have a full range of flats from 16, I have the 16 in my hand here, 16 down to 8, and I have a few smaller flats. So that should be I should be able to do anything I want to do with those range of brushes and palette knife. And I have my tray with a little bit of Liquin on it, the Winsor Newton product called Liquin here, which kind of speeds up the drying process. And then I have a little bit of Bob Ross's Liquid White here. I may not use much of either of those, but I like to have them handy in case I need something to sort of thin my paint down. Okay, so let's look at the paints here. This is my standard palette of Bob Ross colors. I have titanium white, phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black, Van Dyke brown, dark sienna, alizarin crimson, sap green, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, Indian yellow, and bright red. And then I add a Grumbacher color called ultramarine violet here. So that is the complement of colors, and that's my palette. And I want to come back over now to the easel and show you my sketch. I'm going to zoom in on this now and we will get started. So let me get this thing lined up properly and see if I can get it so everybody can see it well without chopping off anything at the top or bottom. And I want to put on my palette here in the lower right corner. So we'll start on this way. I think I'm going to maybe do some of the trees first. You don't have to always paint the sky first, which is typically a Bob Ross technique, but he didn't use sketches like this. He kind of did it all as he went along. So he would always do the sky, and then he would do the clouds, and then he would do the mountains, and then he would do the middle ground, and he actually built the paint up from back to front. And with these white trees, these aspen trees are sort of white in nature. They have several other colors in them, and they reflect other colors as well. I'm going to try to put those in, and I'll come back and try to put the sky and some of that landscape behind it. But so let's just start out here and see how this works. I may have to change my strategy, but I'm going to start with just putting in some of this white. Get me some titanium white here, and just start over here on the left side and just see if I can start putting in this these white trees here. They have a little bit of gray in them, and they certainly have these marks across them that show the sort of the rings on them. I'm sure you've seen those on these kind of trees. Let me get a little bit of midnight black over here and kind of gray it down just a little. Actually, the gray is coming through. My canvas has gray gesso, which I put on my canvas, and it helps me to have a sketch that's made out of white marks. I use either a white charcoal pencil, or I use this transfer paper by Sorel that's a white, and I get these nice white sketches on here that I kind of like. So I'm just going to put this in now and see how this works. I may regret this and may go back and change my mind, but right now I'm trying to put this in so I can make sure I preserve these whites. And I'll just put another string or two down here, a smaller one. If I put these in, I'll at least have the base coat under there, and I can come back and put some grays on top of it and that sort of thing. Change the color a little bit, add a little bit of this gray to it. It's hard to see that. So it's always good to kind of experiment with different techniques. I watch videos from quite a few different artists and see all kinds of ways to paint oil. Some say you don't have to put the sky in first, and so I'm going to try it and see. This is a particularly good painting to try that on because I've got these nice white trees that kind of go through the background, through the middle ground, and so I want to at least preserve those. And I'm just using pure white here. I'm not putting anything else in it right now, but I got nice white. Get a little more liquid in there. It'll flow just a little smoother, maybe. Pick up some darks here and there. Now remember, I'm going to have the sun sort of coming from my right-hand side, lower right-hand side, and so I want to, if I put anything dark on these at all, I want it to sort of be on the left-hand side of these trees. So there's a tree back there, and I see my sketch is a little bit off there. How did I manage that? Oh, I see what I did. When you have this many trees, I still have too many trees in this painting, I think, folks. What I did was I kind of covered up my tree. My tree was supposed to be here, not where I have that. So I'm going to put down another line here. It's easy to lose your way when you have so many vertical lines on the canvas. And these are going to come down. They're all going to. What I liked about that first photograph from Cindy Cook, she had a nice little base. There was a base around these that had some growth, and there was snow around that, so the snow had sort of peeled away a little bit and had this nice little interesting base. And so now I have another big tree here that I guess I'll go ahead and try to put that in, see if I can keep enough separation here to make you see that. If I make one a little darker than the other, you should be able to tell them apart, right? As long as there's a value difference, you'll be able to see the difference between these trees. A lot of vertical brush strokes here, just putting them in now. If you ever watch Bob Ross, he would probably do these trees with a big old palette knife, and he would scrape across the tree, and I may do that after a bit to put some of the highlights on, but right now I just want to get these things in place so I know where they are and I preserve those places. If you have any questions, have the chat window going. If you have a computer up here at my elbow, if you want to send me a message or a question or tell me this is a stupid way to paint, whatever, just put it in there and I'll try to respond to it, and we'll chat back and forth. I do check that chat window fairly often, but sometimes I get so involved in the painting I lose track of the chat window and don't really see what you're putting sometimes. So be happy to talk to you about that. The other thing about these aspen trees, many of them have spots in the bottom where they're actually darker, where they start picking up some brown color down here from where the moose or some other animal, usually a moose of some kind, has eaten the bark off and left sort of these sort of interesting dark marks down here in the bottom. Put a few of those in right now just to reinforce this idea that these are the trees. And let's keep going here. We'll start with this guy and kind of go up. A lot of trees. We get these trees going, and then we'll come in and try to put the sky and the mountains behind it and try to keep from messing the trees up, although I may have to restate these trees a little bit as we put the background in, which is not unusual. It's kind of hard to see some of this gray. When I put this gray in the trees, it's kind of hard to see it from the canvas, because the canvas is about that same mid-tone gray that some of these are before they're highlighted. Okay, so I've got an interesting grouping of trees here. So I want to have some dark on this side of this tree to make it stand out just a little. All right, now I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4 more trees, and I'll be done with my first pass on the trees. And we'll come back later and touch them up after we put some more paint in here. These trees make better marks if you do horizontal strokes like this. Instead of, when I make this big long streak like this, I end up with, it's kind of hard to see the texture on the tree. So I know I'm going to come back and put some more texture on here. I'll just throw in some of that to show you what I was talking about. See the difference between doing a brush stroke this way, which looks like a nice smooth surface, and these aspens are anything but a smooth surface. They're have a lot of bark that peels off, a lot of marks where branches have broken off and they leave holes and dark spots, and down at the bottom they even get darker. So vertical strokes are kind of a way to get it in fast, but it's not the way you want to leave it. This is just starting to cover some of the canvas and get some of this in. So hope you're all staying with me here. Hope you're enjoying this. I don't know, I talked to some of the folks that follow my watercolor painting. I don't know if how many of you follow watercolor as well, but for 3 months I was laid up with a broken left leg. That happened because I had taken some medications, and the medications caused me to have a bleeding ulcer, and the bleeding ulcer caused me to have a bleeding problem that caused me to pass out, and when I passed out I broke my left leg. So that is a serious sequence of events, because I had to go to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 7 days trying to get my blood transfused, get enough blood in my body so they could work on my leg and fix it. But then after the leg was fixed, I was on crutches and with a knee scooter around my house here. And my studio, of course, is upstairs, so I had to go up a flight of stairs to get to my studio, and then I could really only sit down. I couldn't really work in a standing position, which I do with these, with all of these oil paintings. And I also do my watercolors here as well, but I was able to transfer my watercolor session. I got a little bit a tabletop easel, and if you follow my watercolors, you saw me painting in a sitting position for about, I think I did 3 paintings while I was seated, but all that time I had a broken leg that I was healing and trying to work with, so it really cramped my style and slowed me down, and I really don't wish that on anybody. It's really a kind of a sad event. So I have no photographs I'm working from here, folks. I'm just sort of working from memory of what those photographs look like. You saw them when we started up here, and I had them on the screen for a while. Okay, so now I have many trees, and now by putting different colors of background around and behind these, I'll be able to bring out those trees even more. But right now, that's kind of what I wanted to do. I actually put a stream in here. I don't know if you can see this, but it's going to have some snow on this bank here, on this side, and it's going to kind of run behind everything. It's going to have some shadows on it that I'll be putting on. So I wanted to, I got this white in my paintbrush. I might as well just put some of that snow cover on here. The light snow will help highlight the base of some of these trees. And so I've got myself some spots there that I can come back and put in some dark foliage there that's kind of hovering on the bottom of the trees. And all of this is not snow necessarily, it's pockets of snow. Some of the snow has kind of melted away, so I'll try to indicate that. And so I have a lot of titanium white out on my palette, and I'm using it pretty quickly here. Put this in top of the creek there. Another thing I can demonstrate for you is what happens to these creeks in the wintertime when they may have a blue sky. There may be a very bright sky out, but many times the waters look dark, almost sometimes black even, depending on what's inside them or what's under them, and they'll reflect what's around. Water, you've probably heard me say before, water has no color. It only reflects what's above it, around it, or in it. So it picks up those other colors, and that's where water comes from, or the color of water comes from. So if you are trying to paint water, don't always think it's got to be blue, because it may not necessarily be blue in reality because of what's around it. I haven't washed out this paintbrush at all yet, folks. I'm just sort of working with the titanium white, trying to put in some little snowbanks here, making you think I've got a stream going back in the distance. I think you can see the stream. I think that looks like a pretty decent little image already. Okay, I'm going to have some snow in those mountains back there. I think I'll leave that for now. I want to come on the other side of this tree. One good thing is when you put something on one side of a tree, it's a good thing to carry it through to the other side so that it makes the viewer realize that tree is in front of whatever you're painting behind it. So it makes these trees come forward, and that's what I want to happen here. So I might as well just go put some more of that in while I'm down here. I got all this white paint in my brush. I don't know how many of you are from outside the country, outside the U.S. I know Louisa's in South Africa, but Others are, I'm not sure where. So if you've never had a chance to see aspens around you, they really show up in the west here, and particularly around Colorado and Montana and areas like that. And they have a very beautiful coloring in the fall because their leaves turn sort of a bright yellow, and sometimes they're orange, but most of the time they're a brown or a yellow, bright yellow. In the spring, they have this sort of glistening effect. They have a green on one side and sort of a silver on the other side, and so they look very different. So this is an interesting way to paint here. I've left the background, the sky, the mountains, everything, and just putting in the base of the painting. I don't know if I've ever done it exactly this way before, but we are changing things up a little. Leave some room around this tree so you can see where my sort of my horizon line is now. I'm just painting that in with the snow bank. You can see I'm going to put a little more on this tree down here. I didn't get this tree sort of finished the way I wanted, so let me finish him off here. All right, so that tree and the snow around it here. And even down here I've got some snow, so might as well just put all that on there if I can. And the areas that sort of left are going to be covered with dark foliage or shadows, or a combination. There's shadows that go in here. All right, I think I'll stop with that for now. I keep saying that, and then I don't stop, see? The snow here. I want it to put a little liquid in there to thin it down, so I got a lot faster movement here. All right, that's a nice gray painting. I've only used one brush, and haven't washed it out. I haven't even wiped it out with a paper towel yet. All right, what are we going to do? Let's go back here and see if we can start on the upper left side, and we'll maybe start putting in some sky. I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush. Let's see if this is about the right width for some of that sky. Yeah, I'm going to use my Prussian blue here. It's a very beautiful blue color. Some white, lighten it up a whole lot. Add just a little of the midnight black to kind of gray it down just a little. Touch of liquid. Liquid, like I said, makes this dry faster. When you use liquid white makes stuff dry a lot slower. So I want things to dry a little faster, I'll put liquid in it. Liquid also gives me a good movement of the paint on the canvas. It lets it really flow nicely. Now I'm painting over sky over these mountains back here. I'm painting down to the mountain and trying to keep the color fairly harmonious across the top here. It's not real bright. I could have used that Prussian blue like right out of the tube and it would have really been very bright. Would have been too much. So I'm going to just put in some here. I think this is also maybe the first time I've ever painted the sky. Second or third or behind whatever's on the canvas. So I'm changing that color ever so slightly. I don't know if you can see that. I'm lightening it up a little bit as I go from left to right. That's almost too light, isn't it? Plenty of light in there. So the sky is not a big important part of this painting. As you can imagine, it's got a very small role to play up there. I'm going to change the color a little bit, darken it back down now a little bit here in some spots. Make sure I've got enough around these trees so that when I come back and touch up those trees that I don't have any gray canvas showing through. So cover all that canvas. Over here. I'm going to put some snow on the top of this mountain back here, so I want to make this a little bit darker so it stands out. So let's try this. So the sky is probably not more than 10% or even 5% of this painting. But I will let maybe a little bit of that blue show in the stream down here when I want to reflect stuff. All right, let's see if we can get this sky pretty well finished off. At least this pass. I may come back and add a few more things to it, but right now I'm going to leave it as it is. Darker over here. Okay, so leave some marks in there, some brush marks, and make it look like there's something going on in the sky besides just one pure, plain, boring color. Above this mountain down here. All right, so there's the sky. This brush, I kind of like this brush. It's a nice size. So I'm going to clean it out and try to use it for those mountains back there. So let's keep going here. Top of that mountain is going to have some snow on it. So let me get some clear titanium here with just a touch of midnight black. So right in here we're going to have snow back there, top of that mountain. Maybe a little bit on this one. And even over here. Looks like snow on those mountains. All right, now let's start coming down the mountain. I'll pick up a little bit of my ultramarine violet here. And so this is going to help me tell you that's pretty far back. It's the distance. This is perspective, atmospheric perspective, when you have mountains that are a long ways away. By making them sort of bluish or purplish, you tell the viewer that things that's pretty far away. Okay, I want them to stand out, be a little darker than the trees around them. I want you to be able to see them. I see the mountain anyway. The trees I can come back and restate. Little browns in there maybe. All right, that needs to carry that color over. Okay, now what's below that? Well, it's another layer of mountains. It's going to have some dark in it. It's going to be a little bit darker. Still going to contain a little blue, so that I can make sure you know that's in the distance. And it gives it separation. So by contrast, we get separation. There. So let's change it up, add a little bit of darker colors to it. Those snow caps on the top of those mountains back there are just kind of almost too perfect. I want to mess those up a little bit after a while if I don't forget it. They just kind of look like something you'd see in a paint by number set, and I don't want this to look like a paint by number. Even though it may look like I'm painting it in little blocks here that kind of fill it in, but kind of nice to give it some different textures. So there's several layers of these mountains there, and I'm just going to keep working my way across and try to highlight these trees, make sure they stand out. But it has to be darker than what's behind it or you're not going to see it. So you have to make sure the values make subtle changes as you come forward so you see what's behind it. I think that's working. I want to bring it over here and try to find a spot between these trees over here where that mountain sort of continues. Right in there, and maybe right in here. And you don't have to paint it this way if you don't want to. You could go back and just do all the mountains in one fell swoop and then put the white paint over the top of them and make that work. I'm sure it'll work that way. But I left a part of this mountain out up here above me, above this section, so I'm going to go back and put a little bit of that gray color there after I get this finished here. Okay. Let's just finish him off over here on the edge. Alright, now you can see that mountain range going back there. Get some of this paint out and come back with this bluish, purplish color and see if I can match that again. I'm not quite matching it over here. That's what I'm trying to match. Oh, let's put a little more. All right, I may want to go back and touch those up a little bit. I am going to put just a few marks in this perfect snow back here so that it doesn't look like it's all just perfection. And I think I'm going to bring down even some of that into this area over here even. Put a little tops on some of these, give it look like there's some things going on. It's really probably hard for you to see that back there, but we can have some snow laying down in these mountains back there. Certainly if we've got snow on the ground, it's possible we got it back in these mountains back here. So just a little touch just to break up that monotony of one color back there that covers a big section. All right, that might do it for that. My next level down is going to be even got some trees. Start getting some trees in this layer, in this area. So start looking at my Prussian blue. I'm going to pull that together with sap green and pull in some of my midnight black, maybe even a little brown here and there, see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to have some green. Actually, probably I need to be doing this with a filbert brush instead of this flat, but because I want to get some tops on these. But let's see what happens, what color this is here. So you see some color change and some things going on there. Some more blue in that. The blue will maybe help push it back a little bit. Got a couple of small trees in here I'm going to put in and keep this dark coloring going here. It's a little too brown. Let's put some all right. Hope this isn't too boring for you. It's kind of somewhat repetitive, but yet I'm trying to make it so that we have some interesting painting techniques going on. Interesting colors. I'm just making another layer of trees and sort of stuff back there that's hopefully going to keep this painting interesting. This over here looks too, put some white in there that kind of got it too bright. All right. Mixtures of all these dark colors. Blues, Prussian blue, midnight black, Van Dyke brown, dark sienna, alizarin. Throw them all in there. Amazing how those trees stand out when you put something nice and dark behind them. Okay, now things I want to try to do. See if I can get some bit of liquid here. Maybe I don't know if liquid will work. Liquid white, maybe. See if I can make some mist sort of in these trees here. Sort of in this area here. This area here, I definitely want this to be misty back in here. I want it to sort of flow back into this area. I want these trees to have some mist. So I'm just adding some white liquid with some white in it. Give me some misty looking things going on. Liquid is sort of thinning it out, and the brush is then just sort of pushing it around. Give me some interesting mistiness going on back there. I need a little more. That's a big glob right there. Okay, so I'm getting another color in here, another value change. If I show that mistiness, and then below it I start putting in some more dark trees. I'm showing you the separation there of these layers of trees back there. I'll put that mist back in. A lot of just loose painting. More white, a little more liquid, and some of this color over here. Let's put in some whites. So this is a little bit of an experiment here. I don't really have anything I'm looking at. I'm just sort of trying to put in these misty looking values back here with a little bit of liquid and liquid white, and trying to show you a method for getting in some of this mist. What happens is this liquid turns the canvas really shiny, and the lights make it hard for me to see what I'm doing. Got some big trees over here. I'm just going to fill this in back here behind this tree as we come down. Just kind of fill it in however you like it. You don't have to follow my exact example here, but I'm trying to fill in this space with some things that look like they might be a little frosty, a little cold maybe. Trees sometimes get frost on the tips of them, and they stand out there in those woods. Okay. How are we doing? Everybody staying with me? All right. As we come down now, let's see. I'm still having difficulty with this stuff over here. This doesn't look quite right, but I can come back and maybe fix that when I redo these trees. I actually jammed one too many trees in there, folks. That's what's caused me a little bit of difficulty. But so I'm just bringing down a whole lot of woods coming down toward us here. I don't think any of this was in those photographs that I was looking at, but it's kind of the way I want to depict this middle ground back here is like this. I'm going to put some other bigger trees in now, or not bigger ones, but well, more foreground trees, I guess, or they're still middle ground. But I want this background to be in there so I can see the see the trees when I put them in. So I'm trying to get this filled out here as quickly and fast as possible. Put a base coat on it, and we'll come back and define that more with the trees on top that are even behind these big trees that we're looking at right here. Let's just get this filled in. So the bottoms of these trees, this area here where it touches the ground, is going to have to be darker, and we'll try to make that darker all across here. Be putting in some more trees going up, more greens coming down. I'm just kind of giving this a almost impressionistic feeling back here between these trees, so that we don't have a lot of specific stuff to paint back there. But I'm going to try to make it so that you can definitely see through it. As long as it's darker than these trees in front will show up, and that's what I'm trying to do. This gets to be a bit almost abstract-y because I don't have an actual photograph to look at, so I'm just making it up as I go along and trying to keep these shapes the right value and the right place, and all right. This over here looks a little too light for me right now. So I got some browns in there, some blues and some greens and combinations of colors. I'm going to throw some of this alizarin in there to give me some other colors. Now I'm coming down, getting close to my water over here. I've got some trees that stand out in here. So this is all just sort of finishing off behind these trees. Come in here and there's a lot of trees in here, a bunch of trees in there. A different way to paint, folks. Not my usual way, but it's kind of fun to try something different. Big tree right in there. Getting close to having most of that background done. Got some liquid white, a little bit of my brown colors, and it's not dark enough. Put some alizarin in there. Needs some warm. Got some brown that warms it up, but I wanted to get a little more. Okay, let's this back here. I want it to get a little bit of some lavender color in there. Okay, that's pretty basic. Got some grays and some lavender, some browns in there. So now I want to go back and get my, I don't know if this fan brush is going to be too big or not, but I'm going to try to put in some nice dark trees. Let's see, Louisa, okay. Oh. Well, Lindy, you're glad you're here. 9 o'clock in South Africa. Well, yes, it's 2 p.m. here in Florida. All right, so I'm going to put in some really, really dark, if I can get some really, really dark colors here. Put in some I'm using my fan brush here with all my dark colors in it. I'm going to add a little green, a little bit of alizarin. It's about as dark as I can get it. Alizarin, actually phthalo, I haven't used phthalo blue, but if I use phthalo blue, sap green, and alizarin, and some of my Van Dyke, I'll get a very, very dark tree. So let's test over here. See, make sure you can see what I'm doing here. So right in this area, I'm going to put in some trees using the old Bob Ross fan brush technique. Something like that. And it's really dark, so it's standing out against that background that I have there. I'll put another couple more in here alongside this guy. So I'm just using this fan brush to give me the edges that I need. It's going to pull up some dark base in there. Okay. So you see what's happening now? That those trees are just popping out. The big the aspens. A little bit in between here, maybe. I'm going to just pretend we got a whole bunch of trees back in behind here that are growing everywhere. And in here I want to put it, so I'm putting it close to these aspen trees that are there, so I can make them stand out for one, but I want to make sure you believe those trees are falling behind, so they're behind the aspens. So that's the reason for making it show up on both sides of these trees. All right. And then over here on this guy, I had a great big tree that was sticking out here in my sketch. This fan brush makes so much of this stuff so easy when you can just touch it, and it just puts in very nice brush strokes. Yeah, Lindy, I'll have these videos edited, and I'll have the full video back on YouTube in about 2 or 3 days. Well, this is our Thanksgiving here in America, so I probably are going to miss a few days getting my editing done, but I will get them up as soon as I possibly can. So you'll be able to see the whole thing. Actually, I think you can actually go back on YouTube and even backspace. I think it's supposed to record. These live videos are supposed to be recorded and supposed to allow you to go back and see them for some number of hours after the broadcast. So that should help maybe. All right, let's see here. What we do? We're never get tired of using this old fan brush when I'm doing a snowscape. Just so convenient. Scraggly little trees back in there. All right. right, now I think maybe I'm going to just lighten this up a little bit, try to get a few lighter trees back in the middle ground. I seem to be painting from front to back today, folks, for some reason, but I don't know. Put a few more trees back in there to help cover that space. I'm lightening them up. They're lighter blue, so you can see them over that dark background. And I don't have anything I'm going by here. I'm just sort of trying to see if I can fill in some of these spaces that are kind of open. I'm going to put it, I got a few more trees to put in here. I got a lot of detail work to do there on the existing trees, so I think that's going to see here now. I want to get my fan brush working on some of this snow. Liquid white will do it along with my titanium white. Put some snow back there. This is already in pretty well. I did it with that flat brush. Back over here maybe is a good spot. This area here. I think you missed a little of that. These things need to have some nice swooping action in there. This fan brush does a great job with that. I need around these trees, the bases of them have try here, a flat brush and see if I can come out with some of this foliage and stuff that's kind of hovering below these trees here. There's some stuff that where some of the snow's sort of melted off around these. It's just a really dark base that sort of makes that tree stand out and kind of connects with the tree next to it. Over here, another similar type thing. It's just some ground that's snow sort of melted off of, and I want to show you that. Okay, go back and do that a few more times on some of these other trees. We've got some other trees back in here that have a similar type thing going on around their base. Up and meet with that. Yeah. Over here, let's put in a little bit more around this tree. So this is the kind of, this is showing up in that one photo from, her name was Cindy Cook. She had these nice aspen trees that had this dirt was sort of higher than the surrounding snow, so the dirt was sort of melted off around them. And that's what I'm trying to show you here. So it also helps accentuate these trees, so you know these are standing out there, and you can see them standing in the woods. I've been places in Montana where you're trying to find a hiking trail and you think you're on it, and all of a sudden you come up on a place like this and the trail's totally gone. You can't even begin to find it. So you have to either take a risk or turn around and go back. Usually at my age, turn around and go back. So these are just helping describe the landscape around these trees, more dirt type stuff going on here. And it just helps highlight them, helps show you the nice base around them. Back here we got a little bit going on. Just about got them done here, folks, with these. Put some things around this guy here. So this would be dead leaves and stuff, or whatever's kind of hanging below there. You get a little more white here with my fan brush. This area here I wanted to put in some shadows from behind us, since we're standing with the sun coming behind us like this. So we want to make sure we got some shadows that sort of reflect that. So I can come in now and put in some paint that highlights these. This fan brush really makes that snow look real. So I'm painting everything but the trees now. I got the trees to come back and restate, and I've got some details to put in, and have a nice little path way back into the woods. I want this to sort of fade into something back there like that. Looks like that stream's like coming right out of the back of that woods, which is really what I was trying for. This little area here, let's see if we can do that. These little, using this fan brush, you can kind of pull up some of that dark that's under there and pull it down and make it look like we've got. So I got that stream. I don't want to forget to put that stream in. All right. So these trees now that I've badgered so much, painted them first, and now have got some work left to do on them. I'm going to get my script liner out and get some darks, get some of this Van Dyke and colors. I want to get a real runny brush here. I'm going to go back and recheck, make sure I have these aspens nicely coming forward with some shadows on them, some highlights on them, and just sort of restating them slightly. Alright, this is where we're going to start making some inroads and making these trees look a little real. Whoops, I got a little bit of that Prussian blue. That stuff just eats you alive, eats your colors alive. Putting a little blue in there is not going to hurt. I want to make it shadowed on this left side, and keep picking up green in there for some reason. Like that. Let's go back and get some more pure paint here. There we go. All right, now I've got this script liner full of really runny paint. If I can keep that going, I'm going to get me some dark marks in here that I show you. This is a dark is probably just a little too dark. It needs to be closer to the tone of the tree might be. These aspens have these little rings around them, and when they get down below, they actually start being chipped off by animals that sort of eat them. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. It's too dark. It's drawing the eye away, so I don't want it to be that dark. The branches, on the other hand, can be somewhat dark, and we can have those coming out here. That wasn't very dark at all. Come on here, folks. Where's my darks? When I want dark, I'm getting light. When I want light, I'm getting dark. So we're just putting in some of these trees. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. I did forget to put in this other some other trees in here that belong, and I forgot to put those in. So I'm going to come in now and see if I can get a good heavy dose of white paint here. It's not too gummy. Come on. Got a second script liner here. In this area right here, I wanted some other trees to sort of stick up here like this. And I don't like the way that looks, but just a few trees out here sort of show there's more trees out there than what I've painted in. Just a few strokes of this brush to see if that's a little better. I'm going to see if I can fix this one. I didn't like the way that went on with this one right in here. It was really too wide for the type of okay. Don't have to make them perfect, but I would like to make them as representative as possible. Yeah, thank you, Lindy. That's what I liked about that one photograph, was the dirt under the trees. It just makes them so obvious that they're sitting in a snowy area where the snow's melting off, and some other tree branches here. So there's these things that are kind of look like they're little angular things that kind of come out of these trees. Like I said, as they get down here at the bottom, they start getting more obvious. They get these kind of abstract shapes down here that where a moose or something has eaten away at these base of these trees, and it only goes up so far because that's all they can reach usually, or something. That's why that's an interesting type of situation with these. They're just sort of see, this tree needs some more white. I see gray canvas underneath there. All right, let's fix it. You know how to fix it. All right, that's covered. This piece of canvas needs some covering. A bit there. I think this is fine. That's okay. All the bases of these, I want to make sure they were all covered so I didn't see canvas floating around. So that's interesting colors there. I'm going to put a few more colors on the side of this tree, and we'll make some other marks up here to make it look like it's got some bark on it. And you want to think about the perspective on this, because when you're looking up, the perspective would say that these curvatures of this bark need to be curved down, like you curve that way. When you get down close to where your eye level might be, they're more straight, and if you're looking upon them, they'll have a curve like that. I don't know if you could see that there, but that's the idea. You want to make sure that things that are eye level, these things are going sort of horizontally left to right. As you're under them, you want them to curve down toward you, and when you're above them, you want them to curve up toward you. So think about that when you're, one of the many things you can think about while you're painting. Just trying to finish these trees off here. Get some branches. Give me some dark. I can't get some dark color here. I'll put a branch like this coming out. Another one over this way. Some of these. This little brush doesn't hold a ton of paint, but when I get enough, thinner in it, it thins it down and it will paint over what's there. So the idea is to, so I just kind of zigzag back and forth, make little triangles here and there, make sure the curvature is about right, and don't be too finicky over these. You could spend half a day painting these trees with their interesting little bark shapes, but you just need enough to give the effect that you're what you're doing here, what kind of trees these are. These are aspen trees. Birch and aspen are similar, but they do have distinct differences, and usually the birch trees you find in clumps of maybe 2 or 3 trees. Aspen trees are usually standalone. It's kind of like this. But the aspens have these unique bottoms that have things taken out of them where the animals have chewed the bark off and gotten what they can. Just little abstract shapes. They're kind of funny like that. Don't even try to make them squares or rectangles or whatever. Just sort of make them sort of nonsensical type things. And I'm just putting in little abstract marks here and there to okay. Down here it's darker. All right. Put a few more branches on here if I can. Just impressionistically mark there and kind of leave them alone. Okay. I think I'm going to stop on those trees for now. Maybe for good. I'm going to, so I got a little dark area here. I want to make sure I have some depth in this. Hope you can see that. Now this, the only thing I really have left, I think, is this stream, which I'm going to make it fairly dark. I'm going to put some blue in and give me a flat brush here. And if you remember what I said earlier, water has no color. It reflects what's over it, under it, in it, or above it. So if the sky is above it, it will reflect the sky. If there's dirt in it, really dark dirt or some colored dirt, it will reflect that color of dirt. So you kind of have to figure out what's above it and what colors you want to reflect, how dark you want to make it. Usually in winter scenes, the water is really dark. Make this a little bit purple back there. As it comes forward, we'll change it up, maybe make it a little lighter in some areas. Here. It could be iced over a little bit. Just a little bit back there like that. Okay. So I've got this purplish color, darker in some spots, lighter in others. I'm going to darken it down even more, and I'm going to start putting some black in it. I can pick up some of this color. All right, so you have the different colors. You got some blues in there, you got some darks, some blacks. Pull this around here. Doesn't look perfect, but okay, now I think take a look at this. I don't know if I want to put some highlights. Oh, I got some shadows. I didn't put in the shadows. Shadows. Got some shadows and maybe a few more snow highlights in some areas. I can take this snow and just use my flat brush now and see if I can add some little mounds of snow in some places to kind of make it a little more realistic. Add some heavy snow in some areas here. See if I can get some more titanium white. We're here. Back here I want some shadows. Step back and look at this. I haven't really stepped back and taken a look at it for a while. Okay, it's looking pretty decent. I think I want a few more white highlights on some of the right side of those, few of those trees, and I'm going to put in some shadows behind them going back in this direction, and we'll call it a day. So let me see if I can put just a few highlights on, say, the right side of this here in some of these. I want them to stand out, make you believe these are really aspen trees. So I'm not trying to put a highlight on all the way down. I want it to stand out just a little so you can see the white bark sticking out in some areas, and you will know a little better. If I can get 3 values on about anything, I can give you a good 3-dimensional look. So I'm not having full 3 dimensions on all these, but some of them got a little too dark on me, and so I just want to highlight those back a little bit, and adding that highlight, kind of got some green in there again. Some of these look a little too gray for my liking, so you may like them like that, but it's up to you. All right, highlight shadows. Let's see if I can get some gray shadows in here. I get a mixture of my thinner to make it really thin, along with some midnight black and this white that I have, and get sort of a mid-tone gray, almost maybe the color of the canvas. So we want to have some, there were some that kind of came through here like this. Need more. From other trees across the way here, they're showing the shadows. These kind of guys show a shadow kind of like this. These guys are going to show another shadow back here. Could be wider than that if it's going to be reflecting this shadow of this tree. And let's keep going here, a few more. Try to keep the angle the same if you can. Very important to make And actually it doesn't have to be exactly the same angle, because you could be modeling the snow. The snow could be going at a different angle, and your shadow would then take a different angle than would just be normal on flat ground. So think about that. Something else you can think about while you're trying to paint shadows. In here, this guy probably is pretty level, so let's just put him something like this. More thinner, it's not sticking very well. Okay, I think I've got some shadow in there. Extend this shadow a little more. Ended up causing a little. All right. I think, folks, I'm gonna maybe do just a couple more little things down here to kind of tie this together and make it look like we're looking in from. There's a big, all this space in here is kind of not well defined. I'm going to put a few things that kind of look like there's some other trees. Giving us some shadows that sort of go in the angle that the sun is coming. So that's kind of what I want to do there. Just be a little darker here, maybe bigger. So we can have other trees that are reflecting here, and as long as the angles are all going almost the same direction, you can kind of see some differences, and that's probably good enough. I think I've been going here for quite a while, folks, hour and a half. It's been fun, been able to stand up the whole time and keep my leg working, which is good. I've been really missing standing at my easel and painting. A little darker shadow on some of these. Help distinguish them a little bit from what's behind it. In some of these areas like that. A couple more shadows. This one over here is kind of flaky. Doesn't. There we go. Put a. See, now I've got my third value. So that's what I was talking about. I have a mid-tone value in the middle, highlight on the right, and a little bit darker tone on the left. All of a sudden I have 3 dimensions, and you can see these things look like they have dimensionality. All right, time to stop. Okay, folks, I'm glad you like this. I'm glad to be back with you. I'm going to put my name right here. It'll kind of overlap some of these shadows and look like it all belongs there. My T got lost. All right. Oops. There we go. That's what I want to do. Okay, so I think that's good enough for now. I may touch it up a little bit with a few more details, but pretty much that's the painting, and I hope you like it. It's totally created. This place does not exist. I had 3 photographs to work from, and this is kind of what I created. So it's not nearly as many aspen trees as you saw in all of those photos, except maybe the first one. It had very few, but I wanted to have more than that. I wanted to have different sizes. I wanted to have some depth. So you got to find a photograph that's got depth, middle ground, and foreground to make it pleasing and appealing to people. And so anyway, that's what I did with this, and I hope you liked it, and I hope you give it a try. Like my page, or like my subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Send this on to your friends and let them know you like to watch me paint, and maybe they'll watch me paint too. So until I check out my Facebook page, the sketches are below. The sketch is below, the composite sketch of this, not of the photograph, because I didn't have a photograph. And so until I see you again, this is Larry Hamilton saying so long for now. Bye-bye.